Welcome to Faith Works Live. Here's your host, Rebecca Haynie.
Hello and welcome to Faith Works Live. It's my joy to be with you. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and it's that time of year again. We're talking about election time, and around here, from where I sit in the beautiful state of Iowa, we get a lot of access to the presidential races. I mean, we're practically tripping over the candidates at this point, which is a good thing. And we're honored by that. We take it very seriously. But we also have an even more fast approaching election that I think ought not be overlooked too. We've got great opportunities as people of faith to vote biblically, to vote our values. And I think that's our responsibility. It's a duty and it's a joy. It's a wonderful resource that we have in our country. And I love to make them, I don't know about you, but I want to make the most of it. And to help us focus on some of that, to get our minds and our hearts prepared to vote biblically in the upcoming elections and in the presidential primary process as well, because those principles apply anywhere and everywhere, is our special guest returning to the show to much fanfare, Jason Yates from My Faith Votes. Hello, brother. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm doing well, and it is just a couple weeks almost before Election Day, yeah, it's easy to look past 2023 and focus on 2024. And I keep saying to people, there's a lot at stake right now. So let's take one thing at a time.
Yeah, very true. And it's always the off-year elections. I think a lot of us have not paid attention to that. But I am seeing some encouraging movement. For example, even just in our small town, there's a highly contested school board race. There's a board of about three positions, and there's 8 different people running. So that's about as much drama as we've ever seen on our local ballots. And there's a lot that matters. These local races impact our lives in ways that I think have been highlighted and perhaps newly revealed over the last several years as well. They matter.
They really do. And, we started seeing, I think, primarily back in 2021 when we heard so much coming out of Virginia about school boards. And it seemed like at that point, and that's when we saw, because of COVID, parents started to unveil or be able to see what was happening with their kids as they looked over their shoulder and while they were doing schoolwork and so forth. And we started to say, hey, wait a minute, there's some things going on in our schools we've got to pay attention to. And I think because of that, school boards have become much more attention getting, if you will. Historically, about 5 to 10% of people vote in an off-year school board election. I mean, think about that, 5 to 10%. Rebecca, I often think of a Bible verse. It's Galatians 6:10, and it says, "As you have opportunity, do good." To everyone, but especially those of the faith. And there's a lot of ways we can think about that particular Bible verse. We can apply it to so many different things in our lives, but we can apply it to the opportunity to vote and do good by bringing the influence of our faith into elections and school board elections for the sake of our kids.
Yeah, I've noticed a shift. I think the last time we talked, we were kind of thinking about how Christians can get engaged and active in politics, especially from the perspective of people who think politics is icky, it's corrupt. There should be no interchange. No, don't mix the streams of politics and religion, so to speak. We need to stay in our own little bubbles. And I just can't help but think, how on earth do you think it got that way? I think we're in the situation where we are because as the majority of the church abandoned ship in some of these influential realms like government, like entertainment, those being chief, and education being chief among them. And now we're looking around and thinking, what on earth happened? And I'm saying, pick me. I know what happened. God's people need to be salt and light in the middle of this world that we are in, but not of. And so I don't say that to chastise. I say that to urge and to encourage that we do make a difference. We can't sit idly by. I believe we need to jump in and we need to be active for the kingdom in the day in which we were made.
Yeah. In the way in which we've been made purposely for a purpose. And it's, as you said, to be salt and light. And so, here's the thing, is we talk about being light. I think it's easy to look around and see that there's a lot of things that if we just got truthful about it, it's evil. A lot of evil that's happening, and that's darkness. And how do you get rid of darkness? Light moves in. When light comes in, even that small little flashlight or even that lighter, big lighter that you might have, it dispels. You can see in the darkness, right? So we've got to take that principle, understand it, that we're not just hanging on till Jesus comes back. We're being salt and light in influencing the world around us.
I think that's very true. I think there's a lot of fellow believers that be nodding their heads and saying amen, but they're also concerned about the practicality of voting in politics. That's another thing I hear a lot of is my vote doesn't make a difference. Either, they have reason to believe the system is corrupt, they don't trust what's happening, or they just feel like they're in such of an ideological minority, or maybe they're trapped in a blue state or an area that's overrun by, secular humanism, shall we say, or the modern pagan left. And they just don't know if their vote makes any difference at all. So what do you say to someone on that wavelength?
Well, I would say this. Number one, I think that there is this lie that's out there that a lot of Christians have bought into, in this idea of separation of church and state, that we are just our faith belongs in one place, but not in this arena of elections, because that's too dirty, that's too secular. But God didn't separate things. In fact, he established government for us. And so we just have to understand the proper role of government and our role within that. And so what do I say to people? I say this. One, your faith does have something essential to contribute. And you have to recognize this. You are salt and light. You need to be involved and engaged. Secondly, there's a lot of things we can get concerned about. Maybe there aren't very good candidates that align perfectly with you or in a way that aligns with your faith. We have to be found faithful and do our best at picking who will best serve us. Now, sometimes that's just impossible. In fact, we just had someone write into My Faith Votes saying, look, there's so many races at the local level where they're uncontested and it's not someone that I can support. What do I do even in that particular case? Well, I'd probably even write somebody in, almost still vote, but write somebody in protest for those type of things. But then I want to address one thing in particular too, because, after 2020, there was a heightened focus about election integrity. And there is a lot of concern around this. And so if people ask me, does election fraud exist? I say absolutely. It does. Whether it's on small or large scales, I don't know exactly, to be honest with you. I don't know. But I know it exists. Every year, there are people who attempt to do something that is not legal, not fair, etc. But if we abandon the process in totality, and we just say we give up, we're not going to do that, well, what happens? We absolutely give up all and every influence, every opportunity to make a difference in this country and in elections. So we cannot take that position just because we think, oh, there's fraud. we can't take that position. We have to persist. And I would say to people, there are absolute great opportunities for you to be involved, to be a poll watcher, an election judge. There are things you can do to be engaged and help in that process if that's a significant concern on your part.
That's one of the things that I did. Actually, I got discouraged at first, wondering about the process and thinking, is there a way that we can reform this? How can we ensure that this is, that everything is fair, that the elections are accurate, that the results are an accurate reflection of our representative republic. And I did volunteer for the first time this last year. And that was a really educational experience. It was really fun. I got to see a lot of my friends and neighbors at 6 o'clock in the morning before they had their coffee. That was fun. It was a long day.
Well, let me ask you, what is your perception? So you got that experience. Did you learn anything from that?
I did. I learned about some of the inner workings of the machines, and we're in, again, a small town. I had a lot of rural precincts in my area. And so you had people that were, just the mechanics of things like, where do I go vote? My polling place has changed. They had to verify their address. Usually it was very easy if somebody had a driver's license. They just scanned it and they verified who they were through that database. But we had to do paper and provisional ballots. At one point early on, the ballot box where the counter was, something had gotten stuck in that. And so that stopped working. And we had to give everybody paper ballots. And then they put them in a slot beside the machine to be counted later once the machine was fixed. So there's a lot of places where things can happen, but I didn't see any shenanigans, so to speak. I didn't see anyone intentionally trying to game the system. We all had to count and verify. Even at our little precinct, we had to sign affidavits testifying that the numbers we were giving were accurate and true. It was all counted at least 3 times to compare, especially the paper to the number of ballots that we were given. So there is a very exacting process. And I think there are many, many good, honest people who are trying to make it work well and the way fairly and the way that it's supposed to work. I'm sure that there are also people who use that system to specific and dishonest advantage. So I think what we need is more honest people participating and overwhelming, more eyes on the process, more sunshine on the situation, and not just to assume, well, it's all corrupt and there's no chance for an honest man or woman to win anyway. So because then there's no alternative.
Things happen. Things happen in elections. We need honest people to be there and be trustworthy in dealing with those things. So I'm so glad to hear you say that you were a part of it. And I'm guessing there's someone listening right now that could do the same thing and probably get involved and do it and help out themselves. So, a few minutes ago, we were talking about school boards and such, and I just want to highlight a couple things that some resources that people can find at myfaithvotes.org, because at the end of 2020, my family and I moved to a new area and new schools. My kids are in public schools, and I said to myself, how do I know what's going on in my school? And I didn't know how to find out, because I know you can go to a school board meeting, but they have no, they don't have to answer you. You can ask questions, but they don't have to answer you. It's a hard thing to know.
True.
So I went to my team. I said, we need a resource for people, parents, grandparents, to go and know what is going on. First, what to be concerned about. Second, how to find out if it's happening. And third, what to do if it is. And so we have a resource at My Faith Votes called Know Your School. And it's a great resource to kind of get in, uncover, and do something about it. And once you find those things out, you can also, it helps you in making decisions for elections, finding out who's on your school board, et cetera. So you can get that resource and some other school board, school related resources that help you make wise decisions, ask good questions about who the candidates are for school board. And I know you're in Iowa. Des Moines Public Schools have school board elections happening this year. And so there's a lot of opportunity to make a difference.
There certainly is. And that's a phenomenal resource as well. Go to Know Your School section on myfaithvotes.org. That's one of the things that as I talk to people, they want to be engaged, but they want to do so. It can be difficult to find information. Obviously, with some of the bigger races, there's more drama. It's easier to find out where people stand on different issues. With a lot of city and local elections, they're considered nonpartisan. And so you don't always have organizations or, anyone with any money that's out there to put forth their issue positions, or, people just think, well, everybody knows. Officer Bailey has been, on the beat forever, and we all know, the good guys in the town. And I'm a fairly new resident to my community. We've only been here a couple of years, and so I'm discovering a lot of things that maybe somebody else who's been here a long time would already know. And there's also time for change, and all those things are great to have those resources. So thank you for your team and the dedication to putting that forward for people as a resource. That's wonderful. Jason Yates is our special guest. He's with My Faith Votes. And I highly encourage you to go check out their website, myfaithvotes.org. The school board resource that he just mentioned is of particular importance right now as we prepare for this off-year election coming in. And it is that you always hear it's the most important election of our lives. And, just like the last one. But this time we actually have the opportunity to make an impact. We can't do anything unless we're time travelers. We can't do anything about anything but what we find in front of us. So we're here to be found faithful in our moment. Now is the time to get equipped and to inform our vote and to pray. I would start praying now. We'll take a quick break and we'll come right back and talk a few minutes more with Jason about how to engage biblically with our vote when we return on FaithWorks Live.
There's no better time than now to stand for life. And you can stand with Iowa's original pro-life organization, Pulse for Life. They're the longest standing nonprofit pro-life organization in Iowa, and they're dedicated to informing, educating, and inspiring a new generation to value the sanctity of all human life, from fertilization until natural death. They serve at the State House. They educate in classrooms, at events. They proudly serve on the coalition of pro-life leaders. They are on the front lines of the battle against this throwaway culture of death that we see all around us, and we are winning ground. Hearts and minds are changing, and the pro-life movement is continuing to grow. And you can be a part of the exciting things that are happening right here in our own backyard at pulseforlife.org and get your finger on the pro-life pulse. Sign up for their newsletter, find ways that you can make a difference, and how you can change hearts and minds with their pro-life apologetics course, pulseforlife.org. Hey, what's for dinner? If you're like me, I hear that 15 times a day. And fortunately, I have a plan. It's typically Animus beef at our house. We are such big fans of Animus beef at the Haynie home because it's just great quality beef. There's no steroids or antibiotics. It's naturally raised butcher beef. They sell by the quarter, the half, or the whole, and they support your local meat lockers, so they can help you get it processed in a way that works for you. In this economy, it's good to have affordable options for your meat. And if you're willing to make a good investment in your nutrition for a healthy menu plan, I highly recommend Animus Beef. Contact Dave and Mary Lynn at animusbeef.com. They welcome your questions. They'll help get you on the schedule. They have locker dates coming up. Don't wait. Secure your locker date today. Go to animusbeef.com. That's OHNEMUS beef.com. In today's world, security has never been more vital. And at FaithWorks Live, we're proud to partner with VeriGuard Security. It's a professional physical security service, and they're really raising the bar in security and private investigations. Whether you need a team of professional officers to protect what you have worked hard to build, or their mobile security units for multiple properties or large locations, from business or corporate properties to your home or neighborhood. Perhaps you've got an event coming up. They secure quality security coverage for events large and small, because it's about peace of mind and protecting you, your family, your team, and your property. Settle for nothing less than the best when it comes to your security. You shouldn't have to compromise. When it comes to security, you can trust VeriGuard. Contact them today at verigard.us. That's VARA guard.us. For security service you can trust Varigard. When a woman faces an unplanned pregnancy, every possible emotion goes through her head. Where can she go for help and for hope? She can go to Intervisions. Here in our metro, we have 2 healthcare clinics where she will find hope and help. From free pregnancy testing and STD testing to free ultrasounds, Intervision serves women and men with STDs who find themselves in vulnerable situations. They're completely free of charge because of generous donations from folks like you. And their medical clinics help their patients get all the information that they deserve that empowers them to make life-affirming decisions. That's what they do at Intervisions Healthcare Clinics right here in Des Moines. Learn more at intervisionshealthcare.org. That's intervisionshealthcare.org. And you can call 24 hours a day at 515-440-CARE. That's 515-440-2273.
So glad you're with us here on Faith Works Live. We're talking about how to engage biblically this coming election day. And, maybe we'll throw in a couple of presidential primary observations along the way, time permitting. Jason Yates is our special guest. He's with My Faith Votes. Check out myfaithvotes.org. If you're one of our podcast besties, well, I've just put the link down in the description below, and click it and just make it easy for you there. I forgot to mention at the top our verse of the day, which today I picked Deuteronomy 32, roundabout verse 2. Let my teaching fall like rain and my words descend like dew, like showers on new grass, like abundant rain on tender plants. I will proclaim the name of the Lord. Oh, praise the greatness of our God. He is our rock. His works are perfect. All his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong. Upright and just is he. And that just encourages me because he is our king and he's put us here for a purpose. We know that he is faithful and just. And we look around and we think, oh, well, our earthly leaders don't bear much resemblance to that, do they? But the truth is that we as Christians and particularly as American citizens have this wonderful, amazing God-given resource in our vote. And we get the government that we ask for in many ways. And so I want to be found faithful by using the votes he has given me to do so and to elect biblically upright, trustworthy, honest people who hate bribes, who know the difference between right and wrong, between male and female. All those good things, and who are willing to stand up for the equal application of the law and justice. So that's my standard. That's my litmus test. And Jason, I don't know if that sounds good to you. I know we've all got our own, but that's what I'm working with. And that, I think, is true for school board, for sheriff, for dog catcher, all the way up to President of the United States.
Yeah, we first have to, and I love the verse that you have for the day today, because it focuses on the importance of the word, and we have to recognize that the word speaks a lot to the choices that we have in many of our elections. We have to have courage to say that's true, because in today's world right now, there's so much pressure to say, wait, what do you mean? My truth is something else. And we've got to stand boldly and have courage to say, you know what, with love, this is true, right? And yes, when it comes to gender, when it comes to life, when it comes to a lot of different issues that do affect how we vote. And so it's, at the end of the last segment, you mentioned pray. And we have a simple formula that we like to use. We say pray, think, and vote. We need to start by approaching the throne of God, praying for his will and what he wants, that he would reveal through his word. We need to think biblically about the issues, explore the candidates, think about it well, do your homework, and then vote in every election. And so don't be one of those 95% that don't go to the polls in an off-year election such as 2023.
Because it doesn't take, especially, I guess the positive side of that is that it doesn't take a huge amount of people to make a seismic impact. If only 5% of the people are showing up to the polls on an off year, then you and a couple dozen of your friends, like if your whole church showed up to vote, that could swing an election.
Absolutely. It absolutely could. And there's so much at stake. We mentioned the school board races in Des Moines and across the nation. I think there's 26 states that have school board elections, maybe a little bit more than that. But there are some things, you use the phrase, this is the most important election, and we say it every time, and usually with a presidential election. But I'm going to give you an example of an election that's happening in just a couple weeks that I think is one of the most important elections that's happening. It's in the state of Ohio. In 2022, there were 5 states that held ballot measures around life. There were 3 of those states that were trying to make a constitutional amendment that would make abortion all the way up till birth legal, not just legal, a constitutional right. And then there were a couple states trying to do the opposite, to say, that life is a right for the unborn. None of those, for a pro-lifer, they would say none of those went positively. None of them went our way. Ohio right now is facing another ballot measure, and this is in particular a state that has been typically conservative. And here's what's happening, Rebecca. And people are seeing progressive liberals and pro-abortion folks are seeing that people who stand for life aren't standing up to vote. And so everything's going their way. So in more Democrat led states, they're just passing legislation to make abortion and sometimes extreme abortion legal. But in more conservative states, they're putting it on the ballot and trying to change the Constitution and make it a constitutional right to abortion. And that's what's at stake in Ohio right now. And why this is so important is because if this passes in Ohio, it is a blueprint that they already have in place to go to South Dakota, to Missouri, to Florida, a lot of other more conservatively led states, and use this same blueprint playbook to also bypass legislation and make it a constitutional right. It really matters. This is pretty extreme because it's not just abortion. They phrase it around reproductive freedom. And so there's no mention of gender and there's no mention of age. What that means is I've got a daughter, she's 13. She would have a right to contraception, to abortion, and to anything related to reproductive freedom, including puberty blockers, any kind of gender affirming care. She would have a right to, and I as a parent would have no right to overstep that or reject that. So that's what's at stake. So when we say this is the most important things, the stakes do get higher. And this is an example of a bill that not only is going to affect Ohio, it's going to affect other states if this passes. And why My Faith Votes is spending so much energy trying to get this turned down. And so we have something where if your listeners want to pray for Ohio, we have something on our website. It's Pray Ohio, and you can go county by county, select those counties and spend some time praying by county by name there and pray for the voters there. If your listeners are in Ohio, I just encourage them to get out and vote. Make sure you vote and vote no on that particular ballot measure.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. I know I have listeners, we even have family in Ohio. We did a road trip to Ohio over the summer, and there was a special election to try and head off this ballot initiative at the pass. And I was trying to count the yard signs between yes and no's. They were trying to strategically, the pro-family groups were trying to raise the bar for passing ballot initiatives from just a simple majority to 60%, I think is what it was. And that didn't work. That didn't go their way in the special election. And so I wonder, just as we're talking about this, if you see the difficulty that pro-lifers and pro-family groups, people like me, have been having recently in some of these midterm elections, how much of it do you think is based around turnout, and how much of it do you think is the commitment or the conviction of the other side that maybe has been stronger or more organized than ours? What's your analysis of that situation?
No, it's a great question. There's a few things going on. First, there is just confusion, right? Confusion over the bills, and the pro-abortion team is far outspending the other side, if you will, and so they are owning the airwaves on this and putting out some confusing messaging around what's really happening. And so here's the thing: what I think a lot of people believe is that abortion will be completely gone if this does not pass. And that's not true. On Ohio's books, abortion is legal up to 22 weeks, and it'll stay legal, and so it doesn't do that. But so there's confusion about that. I think turnout is going to be high on this, but I have to say there are enough people that, even though they're sitting in the pews on Sunday, they are still buying into the lie that, well, I would never do that, and therefore but I'm not going to vote against somebody else being able to do that. And we just have to wrestle with what's true. What is God's view of this? Is abortion is the baby a life or not a life? And what is God's view of that? What is his view? And if you believe that's a life, and if you believe that's created by God for a purpose, then you just can't support it. And so I would just challenge listeners, if they claim the name of Christ to be a follower of Christ, and yet they're willing to vote yes for things like this, they aren't prioritizing life, then they probably really need to spend a little bit of time in the Word and in prayer and talk to God about that and figure out if that's his view as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think there's competing loyalties too, especially when personalities are on the ballot. Then you've got a whole host of other, concerns at play. But when it's just a straight up issue vote, I think the church should speak with ultimate clarity, 1000%, that we stand for life, and that we're not going to allow our state to be known as, an abortion destination, for example, where and whether people like it or not, we are in this culture war, so to speak. The battle lines are being drawn with the overturning of Roe. I mean, since we're on the subject now, we've got 50 different states with 50 different opinions, 50 different boundaries around this issue. And the other side has been great about the existential nature of what this is. They're saying, well, they're not going to stop until all abortion is illegal, until it's done. And I'm like, well, I mean, you got me guilty there. I do think that every single human being has the right to life. That God-given right should be and by rights ought to be protected in every single state in the union. I don't think there are any exceptions to that. But that's not always the case. I mean, I can't think of one state where they've actually attempted to legislate that. So we got to deal with the facts on the ground. But I think our side needs to be just as committed to making ourselves mobilizing at every available opportunity. I'll say it that way. So in
Yes.
our state, we're attempting to get a life protection amendment. It has to pass through 2 legislative sessions, and then it gets put up for a public vote, a general ballot vote. And it's taken just about everything we could, because there were other strategies at war, to even get a very conservative legislature and a very conservative governor to get it through and pass it within the time limit allotted. It was just like put on the back burner and people didn't think about it. So there's all these different kinds of tactics, I think, that the true enemy uses to distract us, to deceive, to try to steal, kill, and destroy. That's his MO from the beginning. So I don't want us to get distracted or disheartened or be divided about what God says very clearly on issues such as life.
Right.
That's, I think, 100% issue. Every church-going American, every faithful believer should hopefully be on the same team as far as that goes. Where there is confusion, we need to provide clarity. And that's, I think, where prayer becomes a powerful force, as you were talking about, because there's a whole spiritual element to this, that you can present somebody with facts all day long. You can show them the baby models and developmental models. You can help them understand as far as facts go. That's very valuable in many cases, but there are times when people are committed to the implications of that decision. So, if abortion's not legal, if abortion's not okay, then what? And it's personal for many people. And so that's the spiritual element where I think that God's people are uniquely positioned to be restorative, that this is an act not just of political strategy and winning an election, but also for redemption, for eternal souls.
Yeah, it is a very personal issue for so many people, so many that maybe have been affected by abortion in one way or another, or someone who's pregnant right now and dealing with choices around that. So it's tough. It's a personal decision, but at the end of the day, I think we do just need to get to what is true. What is God? How does God see it? And let some of those other things fall to the side. It's not easy. It's hard because of the way it affects us. But we have to be committed to Him first.
Now, it reminds me of an old J. Vernon McGee quote, something like, "This is God's universe. He made it, and you may not like the way that He made it, but you don't have a universe. So
right."
Get your own universe.
Too bad for you.
He runs it his way. You may not like it, but it's not your universe. So and ultimately that's kind of the choice that the people of God see themselves in. We get tempted to believe that we're the kings and queens of our own little world. And that's what the tempting part about what the lies of the enemy says on the other side. I can determine, I am master of my fate. I am on the throne. What I want goes. I can, reconfigure anything about myself and make everyone else conform to my personal feelings and image. And that's just not the case. So it is a position of humility on our part to say, it's not my standard. It's God's. I obey Him because, He made me and He knows best and He loves me. And this works out well. This works out for the best. But I think that's been something that that helped me in contentious situations. When people start name calling or it gets a little intense in some of those political discussions, I just think, this isn't my standard. It's not mine. It's right. What God says is best. And from the loving Creator who made us, knows us, wants what's best for us, then I can uphold that as the truth. I'm just delivering the message.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the messenger. So if your listeners want some really good resources that are going to help them discern what is God's standard on a particular issue, or if you have some elections, if you don't know if you have elections this year and you want to find out, we have something called My Voter Hub on our website at myfaithvotes.org. And so when you go to look at our Think section, you can look at issues. You can go to our Vote section and get to My Voter Hub, and everything you need to know. You'll see what's what's going to be on your ballot. You'll be able to register if you're not registered, and just get prepared in every way to vote. So if you have elections in 2023, we've got that for people to go and get equipped.
That's absolutely wonderful. I'm looking at myfaithvotes.org right now. Thanks for bringing us back to some of those practical resources, Jason. And I'm seeing there's My Voter Hub right up there at the top, as you just mentioned. You can register, and that's something I didn't even think about. I hadn't thought to mention that. Yes, if you're not registered, you need to do that too.
Can I share a little story about registering?
Please
because
do.
I have so many people that say to me, "Oh, I'm registered. And so of course I'm registered. I'm in this business. I better be, right?
Right.
Well, I was testing out one of our tools, and we have a tool to see if you're registered. You put in your name, address, and everything, and then it tells you, are you registered? Well, it was telling me I wasn't registered, and I thought, oh, our tool's broken, because I know I'm registered. And I went to then the state Secretary of State's site, and it too told me I'm not registered. I said, well, wait a minute. I voted in 2022. Nothing's changed. And so what's going on? I contacted the county clerk who's over all of that. And all they could tell me was, well, we can't tell you why. We don't know what happened, but you better register again.
Wow.
So I just say that because sure, you probably are registered if you think you are, but it doesn't hurt to check. And so just check it. And we have a website, and our tool does work. It does work. So you can go and just plug in your address, your name, and just check. And if you have any issues, it'll help you get registered right then in about 2 minutes.
That's a great reminder. Everybody better go check their registration status right now. I know I will. Well, and if you move, you could move from across town or something and suddenly be in a different precinct that you didn't know before. And it's just best to probably clear that up before Election Day. That's a way to get prepared. You can also find your specific precinct. That's always good to know where specifically you're going to go vote. Or if you're not going to be around, you can get an absentee ballot and get all that figured out in your county as well. But those are things you can do ahead of time. And a good preparation is very important. Like I am given to worry, which is sinful, so I don't do that, but I am very concerned and I like to prepare, which the Bible doesn't say that's a sin. So I'm okay.
No, you can be concerned. You can be concerned and you can be prepared, and it tells us to prepare a plan. So
Indeed, it does. So you get yourself equipped by going to myfaithvotes.org. There's some great resources there. Again, praying for the battle in Ohio. That's a big one. Also praying for Israel, which is something that's close to our heart here on this show. So yes, wonderful ways for you to get involved, get active, check your registration just to be sure, figure out where, when, how, who, and why, all of those things. Well, we know the why now. So now it's about the what, where, and how. So thank you for putting all these wonderful resources together, Jason. Jason Yates from My Faith Votes, our esteemed guest today. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And this is, I think, a great reminder again to, if we think we don't have the impact on, significant geopolitical events, on the leaders of the free world, we're accountable for what we can do. And what we can always do is vote well. We need to think well about these issues. And I think first and foremost, before and after, we need to pray for our country, pray for our leaders, pray for revival on a spiritual level, and pray for an awakening for those people in authority, that they would do what's right, that they would hate what is wrong, and that they would turn us back toward the truth. So that's my prayer today. Thank you for listening, and pass this on to a friend so that we can all learn how to engage biblically with our votes. And until next, check out our podcast as well. No matter where we're listening, I hear people say, "What, you have a radio show?" And I hear the radio listeners say, "You have a podcast?" And I say, "You're right," to both things. So no matter where you're hearing us, check out the podcast on, all the usual suspects: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, all the YouTube if we haven't been canceled yet, Facebook at FaithWorks Live. And until next time, we have a mission, so let's be about it: to love God, to serve people, and to live free.
The good news is always on your beacon. Iowa's Hope 940.